Let's talk birth control, the big BC, the little blue pill, that weird thing that kind of looks like two ovaries coming together that you put into your uterus, i.e. the IUD. But mostly, I want to talk about coming off birth control and alternative forms of birth control that are non-hormonal. So let's dive into episode 2. Hi everyone! Life can get a little crazy, so let's talk about it. If you're ready to dive deeper, talk about what really matters, and feel a little more empowered, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carley Doxtator. I'm a life coach, baker, dog mom of 2, and you're always there for you gal pal. And I'm so excited to have you join me. So grab your fuzzy socks, put on your comfy pants, and let's have girls' night. That I want to talk about my journey coming off of birth control. And this is really, really important for me because it seems to be the in thing right now, at least from what I'm experiencing, to get off birth control. That's not why I did it, but everybody seems to be talking about how they're coming off of it. And from what I've noticed, everybody's talking about how great and how beautiful and how wonderful it's been for them to be off birth control. And I just wanted to come on here and say that for me, the decision to stop taking birth control was easy. That wasn't a thing that I had to battle with in myself. However, the journey after actually stopping it fucking sucked. It sucked. So I actually want to backtrack a little bit and talk about my history, my background with birth control. I started taking birth control when I was 16, so I was in high school. And at that point in time, it was kind of the cool thing to do, right? All my friends were doing it. All the cool girls in school were doing it. And it was kind of like a rite of passage into womanhood. And I really wanted to get on it more I wasn't sexually active when I wanted to get onto birth control, but I wanted to do it just to feel cool, right? And I was kind of dreading having the conversation with my mom because that meant talking about sex, and I felt really awkward about that. But lucky for me, lucky for little high school Carly, my mom came up and she decided on her own that it was probably about time for us to get onto birth control anyways. And when I say us, I mean me and my sister, who is about a year older than I. So yay, Mom, actually, for actively preventing teen pregnancy, because that's not something I wanted. That's not something my mom wanted. So very good on her for taking that step anyways. And when I started, I was on the pill. I have always taken the pill with birth control. I've never taken an intrauterine contraceptive. I've never done the one that you stick into your arm. I've always just been on the pill. And for almost the whole time that I have been on birth control, it's been the same formula, I'm going to say, of birth control. I was on Tri-Sprintec and then switched to Sprintec. Or maybe it was the other way around. I forget at this point because I've been off of it for so long. But at one point I was on Tri-Sprintec. At another point I was on Sprintec. And the difference between the two is that Tri-Sprintec has 3 different levels of hormones throughout the month, and Sprintec has 1 solid level of hormones throughout the month besides the week of your period, which is none. So that's the only change that I made when I was in college because my doctor recommended it. But besides that, everything has always been the same. And when I got onto birth control, there was actually a lot of really good things that happened. I lost weight, which was great because I was really self-conscious in high school, particularly about my weight and how my body looked. So that was a great positive. I didn't have to change my eating habits or my exercise habits. The weight just kind of fell off. And that's also something that I did not struggle with the whole time that I was on birth control. I always had a very nice, slender physique. So in addition to losing weight, I also stopped getting acne, which was amazing because I kind of had some pretty bad acne, at least in my opinion, when I was in high school. And it was just another thing that I was self-conscious about. So when I got on birth control, that went away. That's not surprising considering a lot of women are prescribed birth control specifically to help control acne. And to clarify, that's not why I was put on it. I was put on it for birth control purposes, like I said, but it was a really nice perk to have the acne go away. And looking back, I also had endless amounts of energy, And of course, maybe this has to do with how young I was. And I'm not that old. I say that like I'm really old, but I'm only 27 right now. But I mean, everybody has endless amounts of energy, I feel like, in high school and college. So perhaps that has something to do with it as well. But overall, I had a really, really good experience getting onto birth control. There is nothing that I would complain about getting onto birth control. My decision to stop taking birth control it was actually last year. So at the end of 2021, I decided to stop taking birth control. And this is for a variety of reasons. One, I had started feeling myself become kind of an emotional wreck is the best way for me to describe it. One, if I forgot to take a pill, or if I took my birth control pill a little bit after I did the day before. So let's say if it had been 20 minutes prior to the time that I had taken it the day before, or after. I don't know if prior is the right word for that. But for example, if I was taking it at noon and I missed it and didn't take it until 12:30 the next day, I would start feeling myself lose control of my emotions. And it's hard to describe. Maybe some of you can relate to this, but I literally felt like I could not control my emotions. 1 minute I would be insanely happy. 5 minutes later, I'd be crying my eyes out. And then 5 minutes later again, I would just be really angry. And it was this whole roller coaster of emotions. And I noticed a pattern of it relating to if I took my birth control late or not. And I thought that it was really drastic that was happening to me in such a short time period. So I noticed my emotions taking just basically a nosedive. I literally felt like I was crazy. I thought I was about to talk to my mom, ask her if I should get on meds of some sort because I thought I was losing my mind. Quick note, I do not say that to shame anybody. I legitimately thought that I might need them. Anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants can literally turn somebody's life around. So that is in no way, shape, or form to make anybody feel bad because it actually was something that I was considering. And if it's something that you're considering, then go and talk to your doctor about it and see if it's a good option for you. So that happened, and that was really the main reason that I got off of it. I had also gone through a breakup, which was pretty hard on me, and I had made the decision I went on one date, and that date was a whole story that I'll have to get into on a different podcast episode. But essentially after that date, nothing wrong with the guy, nothing, it was a great date. It was just, it's a story. But essentially after that, I decided to stop taking birth control for a while because I decided to stop dating for a while. So I wanted to see what I felt like off of birth control when I knew that I wasn't going to be sexually active. So there was no reason for me to be taking birth control in the first place when I wasn't needing the birth control anyways because I wasn't going to be having sex. So that's where the decision to stop taking birth control came from. It wasn't a big battle internally. It just kind of was like, I thought about it and I decided, yeah, this is something that I want to do and I want to try. I did not know that other people were going to also start going down this way. Perhaps it's just the people that I'm listening to or the people that I'm interacting with that are kind of thinking the same thing. But it was a decision that was completely my own. So I did not feel bad. I did not feel guilt or regret for getting off birth control for that reason. But this is where all the fun stuff starts happening. So if you remember everything that I was just listing, all the good things that happened when I got onto birth control, just imagine all the opposite effects happening when I got off of birth control. So I gained weight. I gained about 10, 15 pounds or so. So my body usually tends to stay around 130 pounds, or that's what I was used to, give or take a couple pounds depending on the day, depending on the water weight. But essentially I was around 130 pounds without having to try hard at anything or think about what I'm eating too much. And I believe everybody's body kind of has a homeostasis like that where it tends to stay. And when I got off birth control, it actually increased to 140 to really was about 142 pounds is the homeostasis since I got off birth control, which doesn't sound like a lot. in the grand scheme of things, but to me it was a lot, especially considering that I've had issues with my body image and being confident in myself in the past, and that's something that I've worked really hard on. So having all this weight gain automatically and feeling like there was nothing I could do about it was a big thing that I had to work through. And it was definitely spurring some of those really old insecurities all the way back from high school even, where I was putting all my worth back into my body again. So that's something that I had to work through, not just physically, but also mostly mentally, was coming to terms with the weight gain, which I'm there now. And I actually really love my body how it is. I feel more feminine. I feel healthier how my body is right now. I'm not so obsessed with how my body looks, which is great. But that is one thing that happened, was the weight gain. So the homeostasis weight went up about 10, 15 pounds. So that's something that happened for me. And then at the same time, I was having all these really bad breakouts all over my face, mostly around my chin, which makes sense because chin acne is hormonal acne, but I was getting these huge pimples. And I was getting a lot of blackheads too, which is interesting because I have never had an issue with blackheads. But once I got off birth control, it was both of those. And it was really, really frustrating because there was nothing I could do about it, right? Because it's hormonal acne. So for the acne part, that was just something that I kind of had to wait and see. I did change my skin routine a little bit just because I wanted to see if that would help a little bit, which I think it did. Changing my skin routine just a tad, I think, helped. But mostly it was just kind of a let's wait and see game to see if it got worse or if it got better. I had read articles online for other women that were experiencing the same thing, which if you're experiencing that, if you have in the past, it's something that, at least speaking for myself, really took a hit on my confidence because I was like, dang, like I've had this beautiful skin for all these years and I've never had to worry about it. And now I'm worrying about all this acne and all these breakouts. And it just took another hit on my self-confidence. But reading these articles, it did give me kind of a light at the end of the tunnel because they did mention how all these women, they were experiencing the same thing, but it did get better and it did go away. Sometimes it took a year, sometimes 2. And in my head, I was like, dang, like 2 years is a long time. But I decided to push through and just to see what would happen. You know, I had already made it that far. I wanted to actually give my body a real chance to adjust to this new normal, which sorry for using that phrase, but it's a new normal for your body that you're getting used to. If you think of it, my hormones have been artificially controlled since I was 16. So obviously it's going to take some time for your natural hormones to kick in and to figure out what's going on. So I wanted to give it enough time to do that. So I decided to give it at least a year to see how it was going and to reevaluate basically at the 1-year mark. Another thing that happened when immediately after getting off birth control is that my emotions, although I said that's part of the reason that I quit is because I felt my emotions like I couldn't control them anymore, I really got emotional when I got off birth control, which makes sense because me missing a pill or me taking a pill later in the day is what caused the emotional state back before I got off of it. So it makes sense that now that I was completely off of it, my emotions were just fucking haywire. I was so emotional. It was crazy. And that was another thing. I was like, oh my God, am I okay? Like, should I just get back on it? Because this is a lot to handle all at once. But good news, that also got better. So as my hormones leveled out, my emotions are much better now, to put it lightly. But going on to the immediate after effects of getting off the birth control, I also was tired a lot more than I was on birth control. And I didn't really realize that the birth control had such a big impact on my energy levels, but it really did. And it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast by Haley Hoffman Smith. I really like her. Her podcast is Big Conversations with Haley Hoffman Smith. Highly recommend it for you to go check out. But she had a guest on, I forget what her name is, who was talking about she touches on birth control and how it affects our cycles and our moods. And essentially, she was saying that birth control puts us in our masculine energy most of the time because it's do. You have all this energy to do things. And feminine energy is more about receiving. It's more about going with the flow and listening to your body. And now that I had the artificial hormones away, my body was actually like, okay, like this is what we need right now. Like we're tired. Please sleep. Which was really great, actually. Looking back, it's really nice because now I'm so in tune with what my body needs, which that's something that I didn't have before. But again, another thing was that I was really tired a lot of the time when I first got off the birth control. So to shorten it all up, I got off birth control because I just wanted to see what would happen. I wasn't having sex anyway, so I didn't need it. And getting off birth control immediately after really sucked for me. It brought up a lot of insecurities with my weight gain, with the acne, with my emotions, with my tiredness. And there were several moments where I was like, oh my God, is this actually worth it? I didn't know. I didn't know if it was actually worth it. I had a lot of moments where I was like, should I just get back on it? That would be so much easier because I knew that when I was on it, I felt so different. But I stuck through it and I'm so glad I did because I'm about a year past that now. I ended it last December. And so I'm about a year past that as I'm recording this episode. And I am so glad that I stuck with it because at this point, my body has evened out. I feel much more confident in my body image, which is great. And I feel healthier. I feel much healthier and much happier with my body as it is. My acne, pretty much completely gone. I still get some blackheads, which are not the biggest deal in the world. When I'm about to have my period, I also have a few little breakouts, but that's kind of normal just because, again, it's hormonal acne. But on a daily basis, I have my beautiful skin back, which is amazing. And my emotions are under control. My tiredness, while I do feel tired more than I did before, I believe truly that it's just my body telling me that I need to rest, which is also very, very important. So I think overall that the long-term effects of getting off birth control have been astounding for me. I'm much more in tune with my body, with my emotions, with what I'm needing in the moment, where before I didn't even realize that I had a need, really. And another bonus, which is really great, is that I feel so much more confident. I feel so confident, you guys. And it's really great. I think this has a lot to do with being so in tune with what my body needs, with what my emotions are telling me at this point, because I have the ability to do so rather than just being in one constant state and one constant hormone level. So confidence is a really big thing. And I feel like my thoughts are so much more clear. And I know that probably sounds weird and that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but the clarity in my thoughts is so much better after getting off birth control. So yeah, that's my journey. I would say overall, starting at the beginning really sucked. So if that's something you're experiencing right now, please know it gets better. In my experience, everything got worse before it got better, but it gets better. So keep pushing through if that's something that you need a little bit of encouragement on. I'm a year in and I feel so much better. Of course, this isn't any medical advice. If you want to do this, you have to consult your doctor, consult yourself. I'm just talking about my experience. But if you're struggling, just know I was there too, and it's brighter on the other side. I also want to dive into some alternative forms of birth control other than hormonal options. Mainly, I'm going to dive into condoms, the copper IUD, and my favorite, and this is what I use, it's called Natural Cycles, which is an app, and we'll dive into that last. So first, condoms. So condoms clearly are not hormonal. They are those little latex, or there's also non-latex versions available. It's the latex. How do I best describe a condom? It's the latex or non-latex sleeve I'm going to call it, that you put over a man's penis when you're about to have sex. And this obviously blocks the sperm from going into the vagina, so you cannot get pregnant. And I would say that one big benefit of condoms, whether you are on birth control or you are not on birth control, if you are sleeping with more than one person, I would say you should still probably use condoms because they also prevent STIs and STDs. And this is really important because you can sleep with someone and you can still get an STI or you can still get an STD, and because they may not even know that they have an STD or an STI in the first place. And it's not like people are purposely going around sleeping with other people when they know that they have an STD. That would be kind of shitty. But I mean, lots of times you don't even show the symptoms, so you don't know until your partner starts showing symptoms. So if that's the case, if you're sleeping around with a lot of people, or if you're kind of in your like single girl era, whatever you're doing, it's just better to be safe than sorry, because lots of times if you're not showing symptoms and you don't know that you have an STI or an STD, lots of times, at least in women, they can lead to infertility. So if you ever want to get pregnant, then I would just say be careful. Lots of times people are not getting tested as regularly as they should for various reasons. Life just kind of happens, and it can be one of those things that just falls off to the side. But if you're going around, use condoms just to protect yourself. And if you're not on birth control, this is a really easy and convenient method to use. You don't have to have the stress of worrying about being pregnant unless it breaks, which there's alternative forms for that. You can always use the Plan B pill, which the Plan B pill does have hormones in it. But if you don't want to get pregnant, then that's, it's a Plan B pill. You shouldn't be using it as your primary source of birth control. But as the name implies, you can use it as a backup plan in case that happens. So the second form of non-hormonal birth control that I kind of want to dive into is the copper IUD. So the copper IUD is like the hormonal IUD, except for it does not have hormones. And essentially it is the copper that is blocking the sperm from getting to the egg. And I was listening to a Huberman Lab podcast about this, where I believe Dr. Sarah Gottfried was her name, was on speaking about women's health. And they used this metaphor of like this copper IUD being like an electric fence that zaps the little spermies before they can make it up the canal and reach the egg. So she actually said that that's kind of a harsh example, but it's like a good example for picturing it. So I'm going to go with it because I really liked that example. It made sense in my head. But she also mentioned on this podcast while she was talking about it that in studies, women on the copper IUD form of birth control had the highest level of satisfaction in their sex lives than any of the other forms of birth control or of women off of birth control, which kind of makes sense, right? Because the copper IUD can be over 99% effective, which is amazing. And you don't even have to think about it, right? It's not like you're going to forget to take a pill and you could become pregnant, but it's always there. You're free to just have sex whenever you want to without worrying about it, and you won't get pregnant. So I can understand why they have the highest rated sex lives and sex satisfaction when it comes to that. So to me, this is personal opinion. Of course, you have to go through all these options yourself when you're thinking about this. And please consult your doctor also if you're thinking about changing forms of birth control or coming off of birth control completely. That should be a conversation between you and your doctor. But for me personally, when it comes to an IUD, they kind of freak me out just because I don't feel comfortable putting like a foreign object like that into my body, because they can become dislodged and they can get moved around, and that just freaks me out. So that's why I don't go for that. But I do have a lot of girlfriends who are on the IUD and they love it. I don't know if they're on the hormonal or the copper IUD. Maybe something I should have asked. Maybe that's more personal than is what is my business to know. But either way, they say that they love it. So that's a very good alternative as long as you're aware of all of the side effects that could happen and you go through that with your doctor. And a quick aside, if you are considering changing your birth control or completely coming off of it, please advocate for yourself. I feel like we tend to think of doctors as these gurus of knowledge, which they are very knowledgeable. But at the end of the day, they are people too, and they have their own experiences, their own biases, and they can also make mistakes or accidentally leave out information that may have been important to you. So if you're making a change, ask about the possible side effects and ask about the possible long-term effects as well of the new option that you're considering. Because at the end of the day, it is your body and it is you that will be experiencing that change. So if you're worried about something, just ask. And last but not least, this is my favorite one because this is what I use. I use Natural Cycles, which is, it's essentially an app that you can download on your phone. And the company, when you sign up, there's like a yearly rate, so you have to pay a little bit for it. But I don't think it's that expensive, like maybe like $90 for the whole year or something like that. But they'll send you this thermometer, and essentially the idea of Natural Cycles is that you are tracking your basal body temperature, and the app will track it for you, and it creates algorithms to predict when you're ovulating. You can track when you're having your period. The app will predict when you're going to have your period, and it basically tracks your whole cycle so that you know the days you are fertile and the days that you are not fertile. So essentially, it is like when women are trying to become pregnant, they're tracking their ovulation with their basal body temperature. It's the same thing, but instead of trying to get pregnant, you're avoiding the pregnancy. And it's really cool because, it's really simple. So all you do is first thing when you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, before you really move around, you take the thermometer, you stick it under your tongue, you take your temperature just like you would if you were sick or something. And the thermometer will save the temperature, so the next time that you turn it on, it'll be there, so you don't have to worry about getting up and rushing and opening your app to put it in. Usually what I do, I take my temperature. I usually end up snoozing my alarm once anyway, so I kind of just lay back down with the thermometer in my mouth until it beeps, and then I go back to sleep. And then when I come back and I'm about to go to bed at night, I will turn it back on, and I will input the temperature into the app. And in the app, you can also track other things as well. So you can track your mood, you can track how your skin is looking, you can track any aches and pains that you're having in your body, or like how horny you are. And it's really cool because the longer that you do it, you start to notice these patterns in your behavior. And I'm very much more in tune with it now because of this app. So I know that about a week before my period, I get so bloated, which is common for a lot of women, but I get so bloated, like I swear, like even my arms and like my fingers are getting bloated, not just my tummy, and I also get really, really tired. The whole week before my period, I'm exhausted, like can't get out of bed exhausted. I do get out of bed, but I usually take it easy on like my workouts that week, for example. And I'm just more aware of what my body's doing and how it's relating to what phase of my cycle I'm in because of this app, because I've been doing it for a while at this point. And it's really fun because as the longer that you do it and the more that the algorithm learns your body, the better that the predictions become. So the amount of green days is what they call it, increase. And that was really fun to see all my green days increase. So green days are the days that essentially you're safe to have sex, go ahead, you won't get pregnant. These are the days that you are not fertile. And the red days are the days that you can get pregnant. So use an alternative form of birth control like condoms, which women can only get pregnant 6 days out of the month, I believe it is. Well, technically, a woman can only get pregnant when she is ovulating. So that's 1 day, maybe 2 days, but a sperm can live in the vagina for up to 5 days. So if you have sex like 5 days before you ovulate, you can still technically get pregnant because that little dude can still swim up the canal to your egg, and there you go, he's got you. But it's really cool to be aware of that because I didn't understand that. When I was growing up, I was always told that you can get pregnant whenever, which is absolutely not true. In my sex ed class, I was also even told that I could get pregnant on my period, when I'm on my period, which that 100% is not true because the egg is literally leaving your body during your period. You cannot get pregnant on your period. But that's what I was taught. So it was really nice to understand this about my body, just because not a lot of people know that. Or maybe they do, but there is misinformation out there. So if you were in the same boat as me, if you didn't know that you could not get pregnant on every day of the month, then you were in the same boat as me. I also want to take a second to say that this is not an ad for them. They do not pay me in any way, shape, or form. I am just advocating for them because I really like what they're doing so much, because this form of birth control, it's just letting your body be your body, and it's just letting your body go through the natural cycles like it was meant to do. But it's also empowering you to make the decision and to track when you can be pregnant and when you cannot get pregnant. And it's helping you make that decision and have the autonomy over your own decisions and over your life and over your body about whether you do or do not want to get pregnant. This is why I love them so much. But again, not an ad. I would accept it. If they came to me and offered to pay me, I would accept it. But at this point, that is not my reality. This is just my opinion on what they provide. However, I do have one of those refer a friend links just from using them. So I will include that in the show notes. So if you're interested in using them, you can get 20% off of the price. So I think that's all I have for you today. If you have a story that you would like to share about you coming off birth control, whether you had an amazing time, I honestly hope that you did, or whether you struggled a little bit like I did, I would love to hear it and love to just build that community with you. So if you have it, go ahead and share with me. Otherwise, yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Love you. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, then go ahead and subscribe so you get updates with us every week. You can also follow us on Instagram at KRC Coaching. If you're interested in working one-on-one, then go ahead and visit our website, krccoaching.com, to book your first 30-minute session for free. All right, thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Bye.